Good evening, everyone. I call the July 25th, 2022 school board meeting to order. It is 7 p.m. and we are in conference room C of the Fisher Administration Building at 12121 West North Avenue. Ms. Newman, please call the roll.
Ms. Fraley? Here. Dr. Hoig? Here. Mr. Meyer?
Absent.
Ms. Neufeld? Here. Mr. Phillips?
Here.
Ms. Willis? Here. Dr. Jessup Anger?
Here. Thank you, everybody who's in the room and watching online. We appreciate your attendance and participation tonight. We will begin with public comment on any non-agenda items. Members of the Wauwatosa School Board value the input of students, parents, staff members, and community members. The board's regularly scheduled meetings provide an opportunity for opinions and concerns to be expressed publicly. The board values all comments and will respectfully consider this input in decision-making. The board requests that individuals limit their comments on each item to 3 minutes. Following any comment, an individual board member may respond on the issue raised. However, it is not the intent of the public comment portion of the agenda for the board to enter into a debate with a member or members of the community. Because non-agenda items are not publicly posted in advance, no action will be taken on public comment regarding non-agenda items this evening. Do we have any non-agenda public comment items this evening? You're welcome to come up to the microphone and share your name. Thank you. And address.
This? Yes?
Yes.
You can hear me? Sorry, I'm nervous. My name is Julie Peterson. I'm at 2473 North 73rd Street in Wauwatosa. And I wish to speak to the chaos created from a social media post by first grade teacher Jake Daggett, stating that a discussion on gender ideology, specifically pronouns, was held to his students. Nowhere in first grade curriculum sources could I find gender ideology mentioned as proper teaching. Nowhere. The response and censorship of Tosa schools was just as concerning as the conversation itself. In the initial response, you state that Mr. Daggett's post did not occur as an educator for Wauwatosa, but you do not state where this conversation did take place. This is a crucial piece of information for the community to judge whether or not Mr. Daggett's teachings and abilities to stay on task with Tosa's current curriculum is even possible. You also state that the grade level essential outcomes as it relates to human growth and development for the upcoming school year that begins in 4.5 weeks has not been determined, and that currently teaching of pronouns are not in alignment to these essential outcomes that have not been determined. This perhaps is the most concerning line of your statement, in that it can be perceived that teaching of pronouns can be or may be added later on. I feel this is a good time to state in the days of school boards, especially in light of this particular board's problems, saying trust us on this have passed. Your censorship of comments criticizing this entire situation proves you are not in fact trustworthy. You finish the statement with declarations of diversity of our schools and community, which is nonsensical BS. Diversity, simply stated, is variety, and no amount of overuse of the word will make it okay to bring a variety of teachers into our district that intend to bring gender ideology into our classrooms. That is not diverse, that is grooming. The statement by you, Dr. Beans, in the JS Online article regarding the large amount of negativity both the schools and the teacher itself received after the post was exposed comes down to a simple concept learned in childhood that I'm guessing hasn't been passed on to this generation. If you can dish it out, you can take it. The teaching of pronouns to, as perceived first graders, is extreme. It is an extreme point of view, which will in turn garner extreme disagreement. You dish out the extreme, now you have to take it. According to your own website, 57% of Tosa elementary students tested at or above proficient level for reading and 60% for math.
Ms. Peterson, you have about 30 seconds left.
By high school, these numbers drop to 36% and 42%. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't have time for gender ideology in your schools. Your students become less proficient in core subjects as they move through your school systems. You don't have time for the controversy, although, with all due respect, Dr. Means, where you go, controversy follows. But we don't have time. And more importantly, our children don't have time. Thank you. Very nervous.
Any other comment on non-agenda items this evening?
Yes, hello. Paul Fuchs, 4080 North 99th Street. Proud Whitman parent. To give every citizen the information he needs for the transaction of his own business, to enable him to calculate for himself and to express and preserve his ideas, his contracts and accounts in writing, to improve by reading his morals and faculties, to understand his duties to his neighbors and country, and to discharge with competence the functions confided to him by either. These were the sentiments of Thomas Jefferson. Our public education system was founded on the critical notions of strengthening intellect and citizenship. Citizenship, or to put it more colloquially, community, has become an increasingly complex and diverse affair generation over generation. Reading, writing, and arithmetic alone will not suffice. We achieve more as a society when we connect with and value one another. I want to commend Wauwatosa School District and Underwood Elementary leadership for their stated support of teachers who understand the role that compassion plays in building a successful citizenry within the classroom and beyond. Tonight, as a taxpayer and a parent, I would like to add my voice to amplify that ignorance and intolerance are not welcome in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment this evening?
Hi, Nicole Etter, 2733 North 73rd Street. I was not prepared to speak tonight at all, so I'm also feeling a little nervous. But I just wanted to speak up as the parent of a Roosevelt student and a Longfellow student, and the parent of a Tulsa East teacher. I'm always thrilled when the district adds another fantastic teacher to its ranks. And it looks like later in the agenda, we're going to be adding many. I was so sorry and heartbroken to see that Mr. Daggett's arrival in the district has been marred by such ugliness online, and that the district has had to deal with the fallout. And I feel like there are probably 1,000 other more important things that we could be focusing on. I really appreciated the district's second statement, which I felt like, I think it's important to call out online bullying and to show LGBTQ students and staff that the district stands with them. So I just want to thank the district for doing that. And for what it's worth, as a Tulsa resident of 15 plus years, I really believe that the majority of our school-age community would appreciate and celebrate a teacher who's modeling inclusion with students of all ages. And as the district evaluates its human growth and development curriculum, I hope it will keep inclusion in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamie, do we have any public comment online tonight?
We have one hand raised. John Etter, please state your name and address. You have the microphone.
John Etter, 2733 North 73rd Street, and Wauwatosa East High School during the school year. I just wanted to chime in and again, thank the school board and the district for hiring teachers who support our students' identities, who are supportive of all students, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, gender identity, sexual identity, and things like that. And I am sorry that a new hire has been so marred, that this talented, seemingly talented young educator has been kind of dragged through the mud so unfairly, when all he is doing is, again, making sure that he is being respectful of the identities of his students, which is what we all should be doing in the classroom. And one final note, the term grooming has been thrown out a lot. It is inaccurate in this case, and in cases where we're talking about people's identities. It is hateful, it is hurtful, and honestly, it is, I think, a great insult to survivors of sexual assault. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no more hands raised.
Thank you, Jamie. Any board comments, reactions? I would state Thank you, Dr. Means, for the comments that you made in support of the teacher. I was very concerned when this issue came to light and the amount of negativity, attacks, possible threats. I'm not sure kind of the content of all the emails, but I think what we need to make sure is that we're creating an educational environment where people can do excellent work in support of our children. And as a community, I think we need to support that. So I understand that there is different opinions, and I can respect that, and we'll hold us accountable to a high standard of how we treat, communicate with, call our neighbors, our teachers, our educators. Seeing no other public comment, we will shift gears to the Wstem update. Wauwatosa STEM report will be presented by Principal Mike Hoyne with Justin Dux, Wstem Governance Board President, and Brooke Delasas, Wstem Secretary. You're welcome to come on up. Share screen. There you are.
I think we can grab another chair if Brooke wants to come up.
You sure?
Okay.
You sure?
Thank you, everyone. My name is Mike Hoyne. Helping me present tonight is Justin Dukes, who is our Wstem Governance Board President. I just want to start by saying thank you to all of you for all of your hard work and all of your support with all the students and staff. And what, again, has been a difficult year, but also a very rewarding year. So just want to thank all of you and for giving us the opportunity to present tonight. Just wanted to give a little bit of update on some of the things, mainly, again, the mission and vision of Wstem from our governance board standpoint. It's an innovative and dynamic environment paired with a challenging and evidence-based curriculum rooted in science, technology, engineering, and math to meet the individual needs in a cooperative and supportive atmosphere. Again, a place that we're fostering curiosity, critical thinking, multi-faced literacy to, again, really discover, inquire about, and investigate the world around them. We are a public charter school that's focused really on science, technology, engineering, and math. Listed below are some of the things that Wstem provides. I think some of the things that really we want to highlight is the engineering and design process. The multi-age classrooms are very unique to our school district. We have a high sense of parental involvement, not only in our governance board, but within classrooms. And again, just trying to figure out multiple ways to figure out partnerships in all the ways that all the great things that Milwaukee and Wauwatosa has to offer us. A little bit of a history, because I know not all of you have been part of some of these updates that we provide annually. But in 2007, the Wauwatosa School District and group of teachers supported by parents set out to pilot a new model of education, and the TOSA School of Health, Science, and Technology Charter School was launched with 42 students. The school has been at full capacity really for the last 8 years with 136 students. What we are, this chart really just tries to talk a little bit of what an instrumentality charter school really is and how that looks within our district. So as an instrumentality charter school, we do not necessarily need to follow the district curriculum. The non-instrumentality charter schools that are not programs of the district really do follow that. Governance, again, we have a governance board that meets monthly. And with the oversight by the school board, approves a 5-year contract with the school board. And again, that contract is then given to the Department of Public Instruction. Funding, we receive the same amount of funding from our building-based budget as all the schools, as do the rest of the schools within the district. What might be different and the need for some of our fundraising efforts is not always has there been equal funding provided when we adopt a different curriculum as might be within the rest of the other schools when our curriculum adoption takes place. Staff salaries provided by the district. Staff development, again, provided by the district. Yet again, sometimes myself as the principal needs to work with the governance board to possibly provide some additional support from what our staff might need. The enrollment is probably one of the larger things that's very different. Our enrollment is done by a lottery that takes place in April. Applications are taken in March. Charter school law says that all charter schools need to have a sibling preference, and the number of vacancies are determined by the school district in consulting with student services and Dr. Means. Non-instrumentality charter schools enrollment can be ongoing throughout the school year and is not set with a lottery. So obviously families that move in anytime after April would have those opportunities to attend some of the neighborhood schools, but that might not necessarily be the case with the charter school as well as the school programs at Wstem as well as with Montessori or Mstem.
Very good. So yeah, certainly one of the reasons I wanted to join the governance council is really this kind of unique insight between the teachers, the parents, and the community. Our school works with the governing council that's really composed of teachers, community members, and parents. We have a variety of different committees that are led by teachers and parents, including the Curriculum and Innovation Committee, Resource Recruitment, our Outdoor Classroom, and Technology. We use these guiding beliefs as well as the mission statement that Mike had mentioned previously to help us kind of guide how we work on a day-to-day basis, but then also how do we innovate and make sure that we're supporting the school with effective financial planning. This graphic was developed by previous governance council members, which again kind of highlights the variety of different committees that teachers, parents can participate in. And again, it really kind of highlights the focus of the different areas that our school works in.
Our makeup of Wstem this school year was 136 students, 73 males, 63 females. We have 85% of our students were white, 10 students receiving special education services, 14 students economically disadvantaged, and 11 open enrollment students. To look historically at Wstem as it's expanded, this is just a graphic, not going to go into all the details, but mainly we do have more students from the east side that are applying than the west side. Male and female, again, there have been years in which we have had more female applicants than males, but again, tends to be a little bit more towards the male side. The historical lottery numbers, one of the things we did this year was a little bit more work with the district trying to put together a flyer that really speaks to that we want more racial diversity. And I think with some of that increased communication, we came back to a high number of applicants this year. We had 160 applicants, and that number has not been that high in the past. Siblings applying is another puzzle piece in that quest to try to get more racial diversity. We had 19 siblings applying this year. And again, if there are not spots available at other grade levels, those siblings don't necessarily get in. For our recruitment efforts, again, we worked with the district communication specialist on a new flyer. The flyer really talked about we can do a small part in trying to increase diversity because we know through nationally that it becomes an issue. We have a large number of graduates not going into STEM fields that are non-white. We also know we have a lot of females not necessarily looking into some of the STEM fields and getting as much as engineering degrees as well. We have increased communication to non-white families through emails to try to get more reminders. We developed a WSTEM committee to again explore ideas of trying to get a more diverse applicant pool. We also had Tom Hanley came to a governance board meeting in April just to provide some insight into some possible ideas that we could consider into the future. A little bit of some of the teachers' perspectives. They feel that they do have an amazing team, and I agree with that as well. The parent involvement is a great thing that they think about with the school, and they love having, you know, some of their inputs into some of the big curriculum decisions. They love the multi-age setting as we have embraced the last 2 years. That was very difficult. So having that opportunity to have some of that back towards the end of this school year, I really saw an increase in their energy level and their ability to work with each other in a collaborative setting. And again, really just believing in the fact that learning's everywhere. It's not just within the walls of the classroom. So trying to get great learning experiences. Love having guest speakers, engineering teams, and again, just finding ways for families to continue to volunteer within our school. I like the slogan of really 2 great schools and 1 amazing building. So there aren't too many schools that have 2 distinct schools that co-share a building. We have the PTSA that supports both schools. We have classrooms that have partnered up for different activities such as coding, working in the outdoor classroom, making posters and lessons for school expectations. We did some different things with Wilson Elementary as well during the Winter Olympics and trying to use ideas. Our band, orchestra, and chorus are not separated by schools. We have recess and lunch split by grade level, not necessarily by school. And again, just that openness to share ideas and collaborate with other schools. I know Wilson Elementary started a Wilson Wildcat Committee. So just trying to figure out, along with Justin and the leaders of that Wildcat Committee and the PTSA, how can we come together and coordinate different things? And then how can we also realize that not all things might exactly work completely together to embrace that there are some differences between the 2 schools. This is just an overall look at how we've done on the Ford exam over the last couple of years. Again, extremely proud of the work that all the teachers, staff, governance board have put into that, as well as the students' hard work.
Yeah, and to kind of highlight off what Mike said, it's really the main reason that I joined the governance council is really just to help support the teachers. Our teachers do a really fantastic job of educating our students. I've been fortunate to have 3 of my girls are in, or at least have been part of or are currently in Wstem. Based on the Department of Public Instruction State Report Card, Wstem is currently tied for 5th in the state, and that includes all elementary, middle, and high schools. The Governance Council has supported new math curriculum based on the recommendation from the teachers, as well as we've also updated Lucy Calkins' units of study. Our students participate in the first junior Lego League. They've the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th and 5th graders have completed in a competition, and we just recently purchased new K1 Lego League sets. David Stokes was also able to come to our school and provide some additional environmental education for both our students as well as the Wilson students. When we think about some of these successes, again, I couldn't be more proud of our teachers. Certainly this year, they were able to develop a science fair. They were kind of show kind of extreme flexibility and developed kind of almost on demand a new curling curriculum that we were able to participate in at the curling center. Once we were able to get busing, we were able to go over to the Milwaukee Zoo and as well as First Stage. And you can see the different activities that were presented there. Students also love coding, so they do a lot of work with Bbots and Spheros. There's been a lot of parental support from that standpoint. And from a technology standpoint, the Governance Council has helped support additional technology to kind of replace some of the aging technology that's been present over the last 15 years. In engineering, very fortunate. Certainly one of the unique things that I learned as having a student through Wstem is the multi-age groups. We're fortunate this spring to kind of bring that back, which I think the students really enjoy. And again, I think from a life skill, it's a tremendous opportunity to work on a multi-grade level to be a leader and also participate in some of these activities. The Curriculum and Innovation Committee really kind of went above and beyond this year and developed what's called this recycled regatta through a variety of different recycled materials. We're able to make a sailboat that the students had to sail across a little rain gutter. Again, really something that kind of brought the school community together was kind of a great event. Certainly, we continue our Singapore math support, as well as additional online supplements that you see listed there. Again, from our statement, Mike had kind of touched on some of these points already, but we've worked really closely with the PTSA and the newly formed Wilson Wildcat Committee to really develop activities that can be present for all students, such as high interest day, service learning day, and continued care of the outdoor classroom. We have shirts that we work together that says Team Together. And most recently, we kind of the school mural, as well as the grand opening of the new school, which was really kind of a special event. Over the past few years, certainly there's been a variety of different partnerships that have been developed, such as Medical College of Wisconsin, the Zoo, General Electric, First Stage, and Milwaukee County Parks. One of the things that historically we had done, and unfortunately we weren't able to do this year, but looking forward to doing next year, is continued integration with the Wstem teachers, help kind of share best practices, and really kind of help that transition from elementary school into the middle school. Continue planning with Wstem teachers. STEM engineering cards are present in all the schools. Wstem, again, in the past, has had a continued relationship with innovation specialists. Recently, Mike had mentioned that there's a couple area schools that wanted to come and visit to see how Wstem operates. We have additional service learning opportunities, and again, really trying to support our school by making sure we have open houses so that everybody in the community is aware of what we do. As we kind of look, going forward, again, I think there's some really important partnerships that Wstem can develop with some of the local area businesses in science, technology, engineering, and math. Continue to support our cooperative and hands-on learning, again, supporting the multi-age classrooms, supporting our technology in an appropriate setting, and really kind of updating that as we need it. Developing new ideas based on place-based learning. And again, a lot of these ideas come from our teachers. And so whatever we can do to support that, I'm all for. And again, working within the school district between the PTSA and the Wilson Wildcat Committee to, again, support our entire school district. This year, really looking forward to supporting some additional professional development for our Wstem teachers. Certainly, I know it's been a little bit difficult to do that over the last few years. And I think ultimately developing a sense of school community and belonging. Certainly, again, echo what Mike said, appreciate the opportunity to speak today, and look forward to any questions.
Questions from the board? That's great. Wait. I'm going to go Ms. Meefeld, and I'll swing all the way around. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And welcome. So how's it going on the governance committee? Is it just a 1-year term, or do you serve 2 years?
Yes. So certainly each term is about 3 years. You can leave at any time if you want. So there's no formality to that. But yeah, I think the goal ultimately based on our bylaws is about 3-year term.
I was really excited for this report and to see some of the new things you're doing. The curling, I did not expect. I mean, we're doing that at the ice arena. And yeah, I mean, just I've done it. It's fun and you learn a lot. It's amazing. So nice tie-in and what you're doing. I also ask about business partnerships, but the tie-in with ecology is fantastic. And of course, a lot of the work that we're doing with the classrooms, with the new space, and that work to expand the program, and it's ongoing. I mean, I would expect to see the split we're seeing right now, and because we developed the program with Wstem, so that we have more seats for children all over the district. So, well, those are my initial questions.
Thanks. It's really.
I was wondering if you could talk at all about the collaboration that happens between Wstem and Underwood's STEM program.
I think that collaboration was more on the front end of the schools coming together. I think moving forward, that's definitely something we'd want to continue to think about. I think there are times in which we're together at professional development days, but as far as some of that planning together, that's still an area that really I think could offer a room to grow
for sure.
Yeah, I'd really love to see how we can capitalize on the long-term high achievement at Wstem and to transfer some of that knowledge and vice versa, new ideas and, remembering what it's like to just having a program get its feet under itself because their start was, a little challenging with COVID right on the heels and everything. My second question is more so, I think, Dr. Means to you and Dr. Marble, and we don't have to discuss it right now, but I would love to hear in future reports, like how does Singapore math play into our broader math curriculum? I'm a big fan of Singapore math. I think it has really high expectations for students and how it's taught and everything. And I noted that you raised it. So I was curious, what in particular makes you feel like it's such a good fit? Because if we think about the comment that we heard earlier in public comment about need for the growth in reading and math across the district, y'all are doing amazing. So you raised it in the conversation. Why? What do you think, that connects to, et cetera, when it comes to math?
Yeah, I think one of the big parts of Singapore math and our approach to that is really the students being able to, which again, see some of that on the district side as well. But I think with us, it's a lot of being able to explain their thinking, the reasoning, the abilities of working within groups. And then again, kind of that mastery approach, from the get-go and going back to that. So our students are very comfortable with being able to explain either to each other or to the whole class, like how they came up with certain answers and being able to show through model drawings in different ways, their mathematical thinking and reasoning.
Yeah. When I think about our vision of a graduate, I think the STEM program is a great example of being able to make really explicit connections to all of those pieces, and just something I want to make sure that we're doing in all of our classrooms. So thank you so much for coming. I too, like Ms. Meadville, I look forward to this report every year, not just because of the great results, but I hear really happy parents and kids and what they're experiencing. So thanks to the teachers as well who aren't here this year.
Thank you.
So I'm new to the district, as is my family. So it's really exciting to see Wstem. I actually looked into it quite a bit, having two boys entering Wauwatosa. I did have a few questions. I wondered a little bit more about how emails are sent out to families, to non-white families. Is that something the district does? Is that something that you do? How are those families identified and targeted?
Yep. So I work with student services just to try to figure out our main group of families that we have spots for every year, our kindergarten.
Sure.
So we mainly try to get as much information that we can gather from the current JK families. And then normally district posting, that goes out about openings and things like that. And then it's taking those families' information. Normally, I work with my administrative assistant and then just periodically reminders on a weekly basis of don't forget, please fill out an application, to be considered.
Sure. So having two Black students and a JK student, we applied for the program, but didn't receive any correspondence, about openings or anything like that. We did enter the district later in the year, but I was just curious as to how those families are targeted, just to increase some of the racial diversity of the program. I did wonder, is there a way, kind of what Leanne was saying, to transfer some of those successes that you've had, even at a building level, like even to some of the Wilson students, right? So maybe to get them involved in the Engineering Fridays or some of the more project-based learning or even place-based learning that the Wstem students participate in.
Yeah, I think that's always a thought of how do we engage, or again, how do we share, information of what's happening in different ways. So I think that's always something that we're thinking and considering. I know within our new building, we didn't quite get there this year, but we have one of the really long hallways can be completely opened up. And the idea there is looking for different ways, that we can partner and try to have different things with the school. And again, it's a small example, but when students did their research projects for countries and Olympics, that was something that involved, kind of both students and kind of a different type of project. And the mural was another one in which, there's different groups of STEM and Wilson students providing that input, and then everyone getting a chance to kind of paint and different things. So I think that idea of community building and how we can share, especially within our building, is important. And then trying to think of, with our work, trying to get back to some of the things with the Wauwatosa outdoor classroom is how we can share what that can be used, by different people and being able to model that as well. So I think as we get going and starting off a school year, fingers crossed, with not necessarily needing to stay within just your classroom and different things.
Knock on the wood, please.
Can share.
I mean, because I have heard from, when I saw this on the agenda, I was able to talk to some parents, mostly from Wstem, just about how there's a disparity, especially in field trips. So Wstem students are going on, quite a few field trips where their counterparts in the building are not. And, just that perception. And I think the way that it leaves some Wilson students feeling, keeping in mind, of course, that Wilson students may not want their kids in the STEM program, but just making, some of the stuff and successes that you've had of project-based learning, more accessible to some of those other students. Then my final question is, I was glad to see that there were students with disabilities that participate in your program. Are there licensed special education teachers that collaborate with your general education teachers to support those students?
Yeah, so, and that wasn't really covered. So any of the staff that are at Wilson Wstem really aren't separated. So our special education teachers and their assistants would help and support students at Wilson and Wstem.
And are there things in place, if there are students maybe with more severe cognitive or physical disabilities, is that taken into consideration when a family applies to be at Wstem?
No, the only thing for, it's open to all students. The only thing that is kind of a caveat or first door is the whole civic preference.
Sure. Well, thank you. I always try to look at things, with an equitable and inclusion lens, and I appreciate you answering those questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Willis. The only thing I would just add is that Mr. Hoying mentioned that Tom Hanley spoke to their governing board. Tom Hanley works with the district on a part-time basis to help in the variety of different areas and needs. But Tom is a retired Milwaukee Public Schools principal who led a very successful citywide school. He led Go to My Air. So he had techniques and strategies that I think he shared with your governing board of how he worked to try to create a very diverse recruiting pool that he pulled from a much larger metropolitan area of Milwaukee. I'm talking with Principal Hoying. That was a very beneficial conversation to have someone with the lens of understanding what do I need to do to cast a wider net. So that I know we mentioned Mr. Hanley, but I want to kind of give more context as to why he was there. And I think Mr. Hoying mentioned the fact that we've seen an increase in the numbers, but we've talked and we know that this is an area of growth for us, and that we'll continue to try to expand those numbers. That's really a goal for us.
Sure. So aside from the emails, or other strategies that you've learned the district or even Wstem has learned from Mr. Hanley on how to diversify the
I think it's really about being more, and I think this is where we partner with Wstem. So when we say the district, we want to be careful. We want to take their lead because of the charter moniker. And so we want to we remind ourselves that they're a little different than the rest of our schools because they do have their own governing board and their own vision and so forth. But what we've tried to do is to be more explicit in our communication and that it's not an afterthought in our people services department. And I think we did a better job of that this year, knowing that we can even get out ahead of this process even more so. We've discussed it's a larger, and this is where it does become a district issue. There's a larger district issue, and I think we can be more deliberate around our junior kindergarten registration process. Most of you look around most most school districts in the months of January and February, they're very aggressive around the registration process. That's typically also the time where we can be more aggressive in our partnership between WSTEM and the district in the recruitment of students as well. The downside for us is that there are limited open enrollment seats, if any. It's a very popular destination for open enrollment families. It's really heartbreaking at times where we have to say we don't have any seats. So I think we're getting there. We're gaining some traction, but also acknowledge there's more work to be done.
Are there some, and just me understanding the process, are there some barriers maybe that we can eliminate with the open enrollment process? Because does a family need to be enrolled in the district before they are able to even apply for a STEM program?
Sometimes they don't necessarily have to. The problem is with the open enrollment process in the state of Wisconsin, if they use WSTEM as one of their 3 schools that they apply to, then they can't apply anywhere else. So people are very conservative in terms of where they apply. The other component of it is while you apply to Wauwatosa School District for open enrollment, it's hard to then navigate yourself into the WSTEM program as well. So there's challenges that we have to try to navigate. Candidly, I think the process of talking with some of our families who are already in the district and they are families of color, maybe another strategy that we're going to have to deliberately approach and try to address.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Thank you.
Mr. Phillips?
I think to that question about equity, has there been any discussion or consideration of just intentionally enrolling non-white students to sort of move that process forward instead of going through the sort of lottery that other students go through?
Can you repeat that question?
Has there been any discussion of intentionally enrolling non-white students? So choosing, sort of prioritizing from an equity standpoint, non-white students to help increase our numbers in the STEM program, but also to recognize that, as you said, those are very underrepresented groups in STEM programs and in STEM careers. And so that could be sort of an equity stance to take, to say, let's purposefully recruit and enroll these students.
Yeah, in my conversations historically with the previous human resource director was that by law, we can't allocate spots just for one particular race and or gender. We wouldn't be able to do that in a lottery. But again, I think that thinking and thought is what we need to continue to brainstorm and talk about and think about. Again, for example, we had, again, it doesn't match quite with our elementary demographics, but we had 28% of our applicants this year, non-white. And again, from everything that I saw, elementary's district-wide, that's a little bit behind the, 37%, I think, non-white families that we have. So we're still not getting that representation, at least of what even the rest of the district looks like. So I think it's trying to figure out how we can continue to tell that story, trying to get more word out communication-wise. And then, from being in this role, over the last 10 years, it's that complicated measure of how are we making families feel included? How are we talking to other schools about these are just some ideas, not necessarily saying these are the best. And I think, working with the other principals of, are there ways that we can communicate it? But I know, as another principal shared with me, that's a really difficult conversation when I want to try to embrace as many of my families to talk to them about leaving my school to go to a different school. And I think that's in my work too. Like, I know everyone's doing such amazing work and doing some great things. I can't say that this is going to be something that's specifically going to work, but I think it can be conversations of, this is what some of the benefits we see from multi-age classroom. Is that something that the district would possibly consider? And these are some of the things that my teachers love about it. And it might not be for all buildings, but there might be some that would say, yeah, that's something maybe we should explore. So.
You said you had 160 applicants this year?
Yes.
And how many open seats or how many spots did you end up filling?
We had 20 open seats just in kindergarten. Okay. So pretty much it's very rare that that spots would become available in 1st through 5th grade. Normally it's just filling that kindergarten.
And are most of those, or maybe you have an actual number of how many of those 160 applicants were already in Wauwatosa schools, students enrolled in other schools? Making sense. Other elementary schools in Wauwatosa.
Not right off the top of my head. I could look back at where they are. Majority are, but we do have some families from the private schools that will apply.
I mean, it just speaks to, as you were saying, clearly the STEM program is desirable to a lot of families. It's sought after and not attained by many families. Yeah. And it's a really high achieving program that's outperforming a number of, or perhaps all of, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but a number of the elementary programs that we have. And so I think it speaks to what is it that STEM is doing? How do we take some of those things? And maybe Wilson and Underwood are some of the first schools to identify, because they're right there. The teachers are there together. The technology that maybe needs to be in different buildings is right there. But, I think it certainly begs the question of how do we take what is clearly a program that is successful and bring it to more of our students?
I sat in your seat not too long ago, but in a different district when my kids were at a non-instrumental charter school as a parent board member. And I remember my conversation to the MPS board and being like, this is a lot. Thank you for being here. I would concur with some of my colleagues. One, great, just the outcomes that you're continuing to produce. I would also concur with my colleagues about kind of like, how do we continue? I know this is the challenge of the charter school, is there's a lot of charter schools that are really successful. The failure of the charter movement has often been, how do you spread those good ideas more broadly? And it's not a failure of your school. Like as parents, like you're trying to figure out how to navigate it, but like the system of education isn't necessarily great at spreading innovation. So keep pushing at it. Think of creative ways to do it. You all have hit it out of the ballpark with a lot of different things that you've done. I'm confident that you'll continue to try to think about this and figure it out and kind of spreading innovation across, whether it's to Wstem, across Wilson, and keep centering that in your presentations. I think this is stuff that you could probably present on at conferences. If you can solve the, how do you make the school as diverse as you would like to make it with the structural barriers that exist in the state of Wisconsin to doing that. The sibling preference makes a major challenge of flipping over, because once a school's all white, it's hard to shift sibling when you got sibling preference following kids through. But keep pushing at it, keep reporting on it, and I would love to kind of hear your ongoing successes. What I would also say is you've had a lot of success in parent engagement. And this is something that I'm paying a lot of attention to and really caring about. I would love to hear the things that the school is doing. And I know the charter creates a unique context for that. But what can we learn as a community, as a district, for how do we engage and hyper engage parents in being involved in really productive ways in schools? There's probably unproductive engagement to parents at times in some places, but how do we get parents connected, making sure that they feel included, that these are inclusive places? And I would love to kind of hear different things that you might share upward to Dr. Means, to the board, of things that are feeling good, things that are making parents feel like, okay, this is a place I'm going to contribute my time and energy. I think that's a great thing. So those are some of my comments. And I was pleased to see a lot of the things that you spoke to in your stuff are things that we've talked about in previous years. Keep working at it. It's not going to get solved overnight, but your effort and energy and kind of the incremental changes and outcomes, I appreciate the progress that's being made, and keep pushing at it. And if I can support in any way, please let me know. I think Ms. Biefeld has another comment or question.
Yes. So Wstem is limited in a number of different ways. And this is the point that comes out, I think, almost every year. So as a district, is that part of our strategic plan to expand the charter school? Or would we support Wstem expanding in whatever method they so want to? I mean, those are the issues for us as a governance board. And every year they come and present to us and are doing amazing things, but we're still in the same spot we were. And I don't think it's going to move, because unless we expand, it will stay the same. And kids will lose out on amazing opportunities. If we think this is one amazing opportunity, then we need to look at expanding it in some way, if the charter wants to.
Is there capacity to expand? Space?
We would have to look at it. I think with the capacity of breakout rooms and so on and so forth that we have within the new building, I think it could be a possibility, but I think that would be in coordination with buildings and grounds before I would speak to say that, yeah, it's possible.
May I ask, how many classrooms does Wilson have at each grade level?
Wilson and Wstem have one classroom at each grade level. There have been times in the past that Wilson has gone to two.
You know, just as we
more common is
sure. You know, just as we talk about, you know, expanding a possibility, and we, you know, I think there's always this lingering idea that we don't have enough enrollment for our elementary schools and we might have to close one. But, you know, is there an opportunity maybe to expand Wilson STEM or Wstem into all of Wilson? And, you know, families, of course, who don't want their kids to participate in the STEM program may have to find another building. But it just, you know, to Sharon's point, you know, we're going to keep, I think, this cycle of, you know, you're doing these amazing things, but you're limited and your resources and capacity are limited. How can we kind of rethink that and make it more accessible to more students?
Yeah, I mean, I think there can be some unique challenges of having two schools within one building, but I love it. You know, being the principal of both, that to me would be sad to see, you know, like a restructure or a redistrict. I think we can learn from each other. I think there's other things that we can do of sharing ideas. But again, willing to work and collaborate with other ideas of different thoughts. But I would, as much as sometimes there are some of those things, it's really an enjoyable part of it. To do different things. So to me, I would be all in favor of, you know, having Wilson and Wstem still co-sharing that building.
And I think and again, sort of discussion for the board, but, you know, Mr. Meyer has repeatedly talked about winning the enrollment game, and that we have to have something that brings students into our district, particularly private school students, or students who would otherwise go to private schools. This is clearly a very high demand program. It's something people are wanting. They're trying to get their students into it and are otherwise selecting private schools. I do think it's something we should really be thinking about as we talk through the potential of declining enrollment and how we're going to continue to get our resident enrollment numbers higher here.
So it's your belief that school within a school can work and does work.
Yeah, I believe it is working. Yeah.
So Wstem could then potentially go to another school with school within a school. Possibly. It would also push us as a district further along in our secondary engineering and math technology programming. So, I mean, I have a a daughter who's an electrical engineer, and she attended Wilson, not Wstem, but she attended Wilson. So obviously I'm very supportive of these types of careers for all children. And we're seeing more students interested. And if you just go to the schools and engage at Whitman, they're doing a lot of the same examples, and they're solving problems. They're in the hallway. I mean, we are doing this in our regular education, but, you know, really formally having a pathway for students to these careers, and that students believe in themselves, that they're able to have these careers where they otherwise may think, oh, I'm not able to do this. So I think we should think outside the box if Wstem wants to expand.
I think that's a conversation for a future board meeting. I like the big thinking. Any closing comments, gentlemen? Okay. Thank you for joining us. I see a lot of parents here as well, and thank you all for being here and for your engagement with the school, with the kids, and helping push us forward.
Thank you.
Have a great night all. Next up is a human resource report.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to provide you with an update related to retention and hiring in the Wauwatosa School District. As of our last calculation, our teacher retention rate is just over 85%. Conversely, it gives you an attrition rate of just over 15%. As we try to think about and learn more about why employees leave organizations, the research really pre and post COVID are very consistent in terms of the reasons employees leave. And there are three primary reasons. One is that employees don't care for or feel respected by their supervisor. Another is that they feel that they're limited in their opportunities for advancement. And the third is that they see opportunities, or they want to have opportunities for higher wages that support a different type of lifestyle experience. When we look at our exit survey data that we're gathering from staff members who are leaving Wauwatosa schools, our participation rate for our exit surveys right now is about 60%, and we're working on increasing that so we have a wider scope of information and feedback from our former employees. I would say, though, that the reasons that our employees are giving, our former employees are giving for their departure are fairly consistent with those three reasons that we see in both research from the Harvard Business Review as well as the Pew Research Center. They rate the ability of their supervisors to resolve their complaints and concerns, as well as their supervisor's ability to recognize their accomplishments. That's coming in at about a 2.7 out of a 4-point scale. So not feeling a lot of confidence. And then my predecessor, Ms. Fott, shared with you at the last meeting in June some of the data related to compensation and how that is consistent with our employee experience survey shared this past year. I look forward to continuing to provide you with not only updates on our data, which will continue to change between now and the start of the school year. Our retention data will have a final number for that when the school year starts. And then once the school year begins, any other attrition will start accumulating towards the next year's retention rate. And I believe the update that I shared this month included a summary of just how we're adjusting that calculation to make sure that we're consistent from year to year with when that cutoff date is. I will also be able to share with you more data related to comparisons to the experiences of other local school districts, as well as some national benchmarks in terms of not only what teacher retention looks like, but also what employee overall retention looks like across sectors in this strange new world. Further, the report or the update this month included information on where we're at with hiring for next year. We have about 36 some FTE, teacher-specific FTE that we are hiring for. Since Friday, we have about 12 pending offers. And we try, our goal is to go ahead and make sure that we're updating that, that hire data once individuals are post-background check. So once individuals are going to make it on to the consent agenda that you see, that's when we're updating the data related to hires. So while we have, again, 36-ish FTE, 12 of those folks are in the pipeline right now. We have some buildings, based on, back to that idea of why are employees leaving their organizations. We have some buildings that are really close to being fully staffed, and we have other buildings where we're really have a big push to go ahead and hire. And I'm regularly in contact with those principals and strategizing ways to go ahead and get those positions filled. So I look forward to having more updates for you in that respect as well.
Board questions and comments? Ms. Fraley.
So first, thank you for the depth of this report. I've been sort of like pounding the drum for a long time about retention data. And I love how this has been laid out, not just in terms of the big picture, but also in terms of individual school. I'm curious if in your work, other places you've looked at school retention year to year as well. Like I know we look at year to year across the district, but have you ever looked at like the real like East by year, West by year? Are there particular types of positions that we're more likely to lose, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to go ahead and look more closely at that data for Wauwatosa schools. I have not dug in quite as deeply at this point looking at longitudinal data in that respect, but certainly that is data that we can maintain and collect to be able to have those comparisons year over year, as well as to external agencies and other school districts. We certainly do know, and some of the work that I did with Ms. Botch prior to my transition was looking at which positions are harder to fill than others in the district. And so part of the compensation plan that was approved this spring included an annual payment for hard to fill positions. And so with the data that we have internally based on retention and attrition, as well as some data that we have access to through our application system, which is called WeCan, we're able to see the rate of candidates for jobs in the Wauwatosa schools compared to overall in the state of Wisconsin, all the 500+ school districts that use WeCan in terms of the certification and the level of applicants they have. So we are able to go ahead and track some supply and demand information. Again, it's important for the compensation system in terms of what are hard to fill positions, but it also helps us go ahead and look at where that supply is less. I can share with you without data at my fingertips that generally speaking, positions that would be within our family and student supports division are going to be harder to fill positions. There are just fewer candidates and fewer educators coming out of their training programs in those areas than others. Given some of the other work that we'll be doing as part of our strategic plan related to creating a pipeline of educators for the organization, we know that overall there are fewer educators looking to be employed right now in education than there has been in a long time. So again, part of the work in the strategic plan is to help us develop that, that source that we can continue to look to help us fill our positions with high quality staff.
Thank you. You answered my second question before I even asked it, which was pipeline and using this data to drive that. So thank you.
Absolutely. As we present the strategic plan, Board Member Fraley, one of the things we'll be looking at is tracking the success of our efforts in that respect. So I look forward to sharing with you key performance indicators and other ways that we'll be able to measure our progress.
Great. The more data that I feel like the board can see related to what are the recruitment strategies that are working? Where are the places that we're getting teachers, where they're successful and staying, so that we're making good choices long term? That I think is crucial, especially right now as we look to the next 10 years in education, K-12.
Thank you. Yes, I also appreciate the level of data. From a parent perspective, I mean, people worry when their teacher changes and or their administrators change, and in education, we like stability as much as possible. So I guess that speaks to, we've been doing some things too, I think, with stay interviews. I think Dr. Means has shared with us that those are ongoing. And also, how do we, I don't know how we can make the educators, I'm just not finding the words here, but I mean, cross-training, but not really. It's just assure that comfort level that if a classroom teacher leaves in mid-year, that there's someone that's going to be there that they can rely on and be confident with. And sometimes because subs are not that solution, especially at the younger grades, it's just worrisome to parents. So whatever we can do to ease the transition of any of those mid-year departures or, placements, which we know we're seeing a more transient, and I guess I'm mentioning this because we are seeing a more transient workforce, basically, even leaving mid-year. And this is not just in Wauwatosa. So I don't know how, from an HR perspective, we're going to approach that. Maybe that's the strategic planning lens. But I think that would really help if we could somehow develop stability and in the recruitment phase, if we could, have a pathway for students to get into education while they're still in school, similar to nursing. And obviously that's a bigger undertaking, offering help with scholarships for school, all kinds of different options that, we could keep students engaged beyond just their learning, that they will come back. And we do have a lot of returning students that come back and work with us, but speeding up that process, I don't know all of it, but it's big, and we have a lot we can do, I think.
Yeah, thank you. I think you touched on several aspects of employee experience and increasing retention, and especially for educators, giving them the runway to be experts in their grade level or their content area. That's going to require some time and some professional growth opportunities in their organization. As we talk more about the strategic plan, we'll touch on some really important aspects of that employee experience and how it contributes to a more stable workforce in an organization. Thank you.
Dr. Oak?
Do you have thoughts about how we can ease the hiring for, or maybe entice our long-term subs or our part-time FTEs to consider some of these positions that are open, or just as on an ongoing basis, if these are people already sort of invested in our district, how can we use that pipeline to move them into longer term positions?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I don't think there's a single answer to that, but I think that folks come to subbing in particular from a couple of different routes. Maybe they're early educators and they're looking for some initial experiences that can provide a great opportunity for them to learn more about your schools and see what they like the best, right? Other folks come into subbing as a post-career opportunity that allows them to really give back and connect with the most important segment of our population, which is our kids. And so I think depending on that inroads into why folks are coming in to do subbing, there are certainly opportunities, and there are more and more programs now for an accelerated teacher training program than there have been before, and certainly more opportunities for different licensure options from DPI. So, Dr. Hood, when I hear you say, "Hey, how do we bridge that gap between someone who wants to be in our schools and folks who want to be regular employees?" I think it really becomes about knowing the individuals that we're working with, seeing what their skills are, and then encouraging them to look in those areas. The new compensation system with hard to fill stipends or the potential for tuition reimbursement. For instance, if someone wants to go get a post-bac program to complete their certification, we have more options now than we've ever had before.
Any other board comments or questions? I would just reiterate the data and all the questions I have on my list you've answered this evening. We're going to have to be creative, and I'm glad you're in the seat. I know the challenges facing it. I talked to colleagues at Madison, UW Milwaukee, and Marquette about the teacher education programs and their state of student levels. And I think doing everything we can to make this profession, I think for all of us, for the state of Wisconsin and for the country, that education is a place where people want to spend a career. But for us in Wauwatosa, which is our kind of sphere of influence, whatever we can do, I will look forward to kind of hearing both what the data tells us and recommendations moving forward.
Thank you.
Sarah, do you mind if I?
Please.
I did. I can't.
Okay.
I try to stay out of HR, but
I appreciate your efforts.
I would just ask the board and the community to be aware of, I think, some of the best research that's happening nationally right here locally. It's a gentleman by the name of Curtis Jones out of the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And he does research annually on how teachers interpret the educator effectiveness program in their schools. He first started this research around the concept of how do you keep urban teachers in our urban centers in the state. But Dr. Curtis has gone deeper, or Curtis Jones, excuse me, Dr. Jones has gone deeper, and now he's surveying all teachers throughout Wisconsin. And the concept of feedback and the quality of feedback, we've talked a lot about compensation this evening. But the research shows that people stay when they know that they're getting really high quality feedback, and that their principal knows what's happening in their classroom, and that they can anticipate the problems that they're going to have. I just share that because if you really do, and maybe we can provide a link to that research. We actually have the breakdown of Dr. Curtis Jones's research by district and then by building, by each of those components. And Sarah and I, Ms. Zelazowski and I have been starting to look at that data because there's a lot of overlap between what we saw with the Culture app data and what that information provided as well. So there's more for us to do strategically. I think there's always anecdotal things that we talk about. We're hoping to be creative with you. That's why we hope you're starting to get creative with the strategic planning opportunity. I will leave you with this opportunity because I think, Dr. Hoyt, it goes to what you were referencing. There's a group that used to be called MTech. Now they're known as the Urban Learning Collaborative, and they license. They can take someone who's a current educational assistant and get them licensed. And they want to work with Wauwatosa. We couldn't really do it last year because of all of our turnover, but they want to create a pipeline for people who are committed to our district, who are already educational assistants, but they need help getting to that licensure component of things. Some districts have to make a financial commitment. So we talked about that pipeline. So we hope that you're thinking that way. I would encourage you to go out to the Urban Learning Collaborative. And then the last thing I want to just give a shout out because he deserves it. Mr. Stephen Oliver has been our summer school principal all year. He's been working hard. He reminded me today that it ends on Thursday. I think he said it multiple times on the call. I don't know why. But I'm really proud to say that Mr. Oliver did a nice job in hiring our current students who have articulated that they are interested in going into education. So we have a lot of young people who are serving as hall aides or they're helping with young students. So that's just another way we're trying to build the pipeline. But I think you're getting a sense of how deeper Ms. Zelazowski will go in this. This is just we'll make this as you requested. We'll make this a monthly report so you can continue to ask your questions. I would encourage you to reach out to Ms. Zelazoski between now and the next meeting just to ask deeper questions. And your questions will help us refine this report. I'm really excited about the link in her report that allows parents to Ms. Muehlfeld's point, that allows parents to go into that breakout to see your school and to see what vacancies there are. We're providing that for a few reasons. One, we want to be clear in our communication, but two, if there are parents or community members who want to talk to their friends who are educators and encourage them to work in a really forward-thinking, exciting school district, we encourage them to help us with the recruitment process. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is our financial report.
And good evening.
Good evening.
So tonight we have the June financial report, and June is a little bit different month than most. From a cash basis point of view, all the cash disbursements and cash receipts are fully accounted for and complete in the report. We're completing the year-end accrual and journal entries and financial accounting that happens at the end of every fiscal year. So we'll bring back to the board a full accounting of the entire 21-22 fiscal year, which will include all those things. So June's a little bit different in that respect. I just wanted to make those comments prior to the board reviewing, I guess, the report in detail. So like I said, we'll bring that back to the board next month to give a full accounting. We'll look at budget variances, the key areas, and that'll inform our budget planning for 22-23 as well as beyond. So any questions beyond that?
Generally speaking, Mr. Brightman, as you look at how we performed and how we're tracking right now, what's the financial health of the district?
Yeah, we're still tracking the way that we've talked about previously with the expected budget surplus, and that'll provide the board with some flexibility in planning into future budgets. So I'm kind of excited to fully vet those, fully complete those. I hate to get too far ahead of myself until I see the full accounting, because there's some things we do at the last minute that truly kind of bridge those gaps. But again, a month from now, I know we'll have a very clear picture of where we're at and bring that back to the board as a full report.
That's good. I'm sorry, Mr. Brightman. I guess I have another question. So traditionally, the summer is time for vacations and audits. And so how is the district audit going along? And if you can just give us a high-level overview of what that process is doing.
Yeah, so we went through a kind of preliminary audit with the CLA audit findings on the purchasing scope. So we're following up with those recommendations and the management responses that we had to those. We had our preliminary field work for the annual financial audit 2 weeks ago, and that all went really well. The auditors were pleased with getting information in a timely basis. There were speed bumps last year with getting things, and this year they did not have those. We've gotten that feedback already, and the final field work happens second or third week in August, and that's when they do their final audit and all of our accruals and everything that we'll be updating over the next week or 2 weeks. So all going very well and as expected.
Thank you. Thank you. Seeing no other questions, thank you so much. Thank you. Our next item is the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda which board members would like to remove for separate discussion and action? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
We'll give it to Ms. Willis. Any board discussion on this item? Ms. Muehlfeld?
I do. Thank you. The consent agenda looks a little different than this evening. Can you help us understand? Maybe I'm glad you're still here at the microphone. Help us understand some of these other financial items that we have on.
Yeah, so that's why I came up here also and stayed here for this item. There are a few additional items we're trying to work through right now with having the full transparency of these items, along with streamlining the process for approvals. We've gotten feedback from the board also that some of the discussion action sequences for some of the items seemed a little bit unnecessary, given that they're recurring items, they're within budget scope. The renewals, they're not new items for the board to vet. The only item on this report that doesn't fit that category are the two-way radios. But those were approved as part of an ESSER spending plan the board did earlier. And this is just showing the bid results for those radios as we move forward with the purchasing side of that. So that's the reason for an extended list here. I guess we're wanting to get feedback from the board about which types of items to put on consent, which ones not to. As you're aware, our spending threshold is $20,000 or above, comes to the board for review and discussion if requested. And so we're, again, looking at which ones would fit consent, which ones wouldn't. As part of our responses to the CLA audit report, we hope to bring the board, or we'll bring the board recommendations on decision rules about what items come on consent, which ones don't. And of course, the board always has the ability and authority to pull something off consent for further discussion. So if we edge on the side of putting too much on here, they can be pulled off for discussion if the board requests that.
Thank you, Ms. Mayfeld, for the question. Thank you for the detailed answer.
Good evening. This evening's employee transactions included in the consent agenda approves the employment of 2 assistant principals new to the Wauwatosa School District. The assistant principals for both Longfellow and Whitman Middle Schools. I've invited them this evening just to say a few brief words and to meet all of you.
Buenas noches a todos. Good evening to everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Means, members of the board, the Whitman Middle School team, and Principal Deanna for entrusting me with the role of assistant principal. Most importantly, the students who won me over with their excellent questions and genuine care and concern for who is selected to lead at their school. I am excited to serve our school community and to contribute to the work of school improvement.
Welcome.
Hello, everyone here. I don't have my teacher books yet. My name is Alicia Gilbert Ewing, but I go by Allie Gilbert. I am honored to be the new assistant principal at Longfellow Middle School. I actually have been in the district for 4 years at Tosa East as a high school English teacher. So I'm really excited to make this transition. Also get to feel what my students are feeling right now, transitioning into a new school. I'm really honored to work with the families and parents and continue to work with and serve in the community in a way that's different than my traditional role, but I'm really excited. We've already started doing some work, so really excited just to go on this new journey and kind of embark in the community in a new way.
Thank you both for being here. I know there's at least one proud Whitman Middle School parent in the room who previously introduced him as such as, and I have a middle schooler starting at Longfellow. So it's such a interesting and complex moment in time to support kids in their education in those ages and in that development. So thank you for undertaking this. Thank you for the principals for being here. I am really excited to see kind of what exciting things you've got in store for these middle schools and where we're going to take them, and look forward to kind of hearing more as we go throughout the school year, both from my 6th grader and from y'all.
I just want to say, I also want to give some kudos to Ms. Zelazowski for getting some mental health specialists hired. That is not an easy task this day and age. We talk about teacher shortages, but mental health shortages are, I think, perhaps even a bigger problem. So kudos to you for filling some of those ESSER positions. I'm really excited to see that.
Eric, if I can also add, I'm just thrilled to see, diverse leadership at our middle schools. So great job, HR, and welcome to the team. I'm excited to see what you guys do.
Welcome to both of you. And Ms. Gilbert, I'm sorry to see you leaving the classroom as my child had the benefit of having you, but I'm really excited to see you both at the middle school. I was a middle school and high school teacher, and middle school is like a whole different breed of kiddos, and they need loving folks with firm, clear expectations. And I'm sure they're going to be excited to see some new faces. And just, we wish you not good luck, but good work. And please let the board and your principals, let them know what you need, because we really want to make sure that you feel successful. So we're here for you.
I'm excited about the quality of the educators that we have coming in. And I know we are going to continue to push and find creative ways, as we just talked about, to maintain our educational workforce and to make this a district that educators don't want to leave, that they are supported, that they are compensated, that they feel that they are valued in a way that is maybe unique among other districts. Hopefully all districts get to this way, but I'm going to be a little competitive with this. So continue to push at this, and thank you all for your continued work. Is there any community comment on this item? Please come up. Yes. Yeah. You can just introduce yourself and share your address.
Yep. Hi, I'm Laura Wind Passenger, 11805 West Oxford Place. I have two, well, soon to be first graders at Underwood. And I just wanted to, within your consent agenda tonight, of course, is the appointment of Jake Dignan. And I just wanted to say thank you all so much for such a great hire. And he's got an amazing reputation. And as an Underwood parent, I couldn't be more thrilled that he will be at the school and hopefully working a little bit with my kiddos. So thank you all so much. And thank you for the second response to the whatever. So I don't go off of like written things. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you. Jamie, do any have any comments online?
Yeah, we have a few hands raised. Kendra Kovar, you have the microphone. Please state your name and address.
Kendra Kovar, 2405 Merlin Way, Brookfield, Wisconsin. I'm an 8th grade teacher at Whitman Middle School. I've been in the district for 16 years now. And in that time, I've been a mentor to many new teachers. And I just thought I'd chime in on a couple of things possibly affecting teacher retention. With a lot of turnover in HR, the onboarding of teachers in August has been a little inconsistent. So I'm really looking forward to the new leadership really getting a handle on that and making sure teachers transition into the district in a very comfortable way and a very supportive way. And then I'm also asking that maybe we look at the mentoring program and how it's set up. I know sometimes it's very difficult to get mentors. So maybe providing a different kind of setup or training, maybe more specific in buildings rather than always district-wide. I think each building has its own little culture, and I think new teachers would appreciate a lot more time maybe with all the new teachers in the building. I know our building's going to have over 10, so it'd be really nice to get support within the building as well as district-wide, and maybe to increase more people to want to mentor. Perhaps an extra stipend, taking a look at the financial situation with that. I know teacher coaches are paid pretty substantially compared to new hires for teachers, but they don't always have the time to meet with a teacher on call. And usually your in-building mentor can get to you within 24 hours, if not the same day, to have a conversation with you and be supportive of that new teacher. So perhaps some better onboarding, or maybe just reconsidering the structure of the mentoring program, and then possibly more financial incentives for more teachers to come forward to be mentors as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is John Eder. Please state your name and address. You have the microphone.
John Eder, still at 2733 North 73rd Street. I just wanted to say that from what I know of a number of the hires that we're looking at approving tonight, we have a wonderful and an amazingly talented batch of educators coming into the district or transferring within the district. And specifically, I'd like to say that Ms. Gilbert is going to be an amazing addition at Longfellow. She's done just tremendous work at East over the past 4 years. I was really looking forward to my children someday having her as a teacher at East. I'm sad that we're losing her, but I am so glad that she will be part of their lives at Longfellow. So thank you.
There are no more hands raised.
Thank you. Our educators calling in this evening, and to those maybe pursuing national board certification, good luck. Any other items?
I can make a comment. I was super thrilled, of course, seeing these assistant principals, but also want to just make a point to say I was also thrilled as a Jefferson parent to see that we're getting more male educators, especially in elementary school. And the same goes for Mr. Daggett. I think that's an area too that we sometimes overlook. We often see female teachers in elementary schools, and it's just so critical and important that we get more male educators. So I was thrilled to see that Jefferson was getting a gentleman, and that also that Mr. Daggett took that position at Underwood. So just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. Ms. Newman, I think we're ready to call the roll.
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Hoig?
Yes.
Ms. Neufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Ms. Willis?
Yes.
Dr. Jessefinger?
Yes, and that item passes.
Dr. Jessefinger. I would be remiss if I didn't thank our principal, Sarah. Thank you. Sarah, the brand new principal to Whitman. Dr. Hoig mentioned that we're hiring a lot of mental health specialists. That's through a lot of the hard work of Ms. Emily O'Connor, who is our Director of Student Success. People are, it is July 25th. And I think part of what we've done, and this is coming from you in terms of messaging, is that we have to hit the ground running. And people have been working around the clock and really hard. So I'm thankful that we're bringing the candidates to you for approval. But I also want to just thank our new team. They're learning their way around the community in their schools, but at the same time, diligently working to accomplish the task that we all want them to accomplish. So thank you, Sarah, and everyone else.
Thank you. Next up, academic performance action items. First, approval of the proposed purchase of computers for the West High School Art Studio. And a reminder on these, we had pretty extensive presentations and discussion opportunity for both community questions and comments, as well as board questions and comments on any follow-ups. Mr. Phillips.
Sure. It is recommended that the school board approve the proposed purchase of the computers for the West High School Art Studio, and I so move.
Second.
Outstanding. Any reset that you'd have for us, or do you want us to, if we've got any check-in with questions first?
The only thing that I thought I might offer is last time we met, the board had asked a few questions about how these computers might serve diverse learning needs. So I did reach out to David Peach, who is our special education department head. Here's what he had to say about that topic. He said that it would be a great format for students who use an iPad as a digital communication device because it's a familiar platform. He also said that it would have potential for students with fine motor limitations, assuming that the stylus that would be part of these Wacom tablets would allow them to have a consistency in learning to use that fine motor skill, but also to feel different than drawing with pencil or crayon, like some of the things they might be commonly using, and that the vibrancy of the colors on the screen would be really engaging. And so he was really excited about that possibility. He also suggested I reach out to our occupational therapist, Mary McElwee. So what she had to say was that Apple products are actually known for having the most accessibility features and universal access compared to other companies. She also said that she is one of the assistive technology specialists in the district, and that she could see a lot of different applications for our students who do have disabilities to use this equipment. So that was just a little bit of further research I had done since our last meeting.
Thank you so much for doing that and bringing that forward. Any other board comments or questions on this item?
I could just say thank you for your thoughtfulness and for reaching out. And I encourage you to continue to collaborate with those teachers and specialists, to make it as inclusive as possible.
We do have plans once the school year starts to really sit down and once the equipment's all set up to really brainstorm how further we can use it.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it is fantastic that you're here and you did the follow-up, and I'm just very excited about this proposal.
Any community comment on this item? Jamie, we don't have any in the room. Any online?
No hands are raised.
Ms. Newman, please call the roll.
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Hoig?
Yes.
Ms. Neufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Ms. Willis?
Yes.
Dr. Jessipanger?
Yes, and this item passes. Thank you both, and I hope you have a great start to the year.
Thank you.
The next item is approval of the textbook subscription renewals.
It is recommended that the school board approve the textbook subscription renewals as presented at the July 11th, 2022 meeting, and I so move.
May I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Any reset for us on this one?
I do know that one point of conversation.
There we go. One point of conversation was accessibility to printed out text. And we confirmed with all of the publishers that we can print out any of the pages from the textbooks so that students can have a hard copy of it. And that is the preferred mode to go down because part of having the online textbook is that it can be updated in real time in case there's an error that's found or there's new information to be added to the textbook. So all of that checked out. So that's what I wanted to update all of you with.
Okay. Any other board comments or questions?
Again, thank you for the thoughtfulness and getting those questions answered. That's great to hear.
Absolutely.
Any community comment on this item in the room? Anything online?
No hands raised.
Standing, Ms. Fraley? Ms. Newman?
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Hoig?
Yes.
Ms. Neufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Ms. Willis?
Yes.
Dr. Jessipanger?
Yes, and that passes. Thank you very much. Approval of the EDIS license renewal.
It is recommended that the school board approve the EDIS license renewal as presented at the July 11th, 2022 meeting, and I so move.
Second.
And I have nothing new to bring forward to the board. There were no questions lingering the last time. So unless there are questions that have come up, I have nothing more for you today.
Anything from the board? Anything from the community in the room? Anything from the community online?
There are no hands raised.
Ms. Newman?
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Hoig?
Yes.
Ms. Neufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Ms. Willis?
Yes.
Dr. Jessipanger?
Yes, and that item passes. Next up is Technology Department action items. Approval of the Microsoft Services renewal.
It is recommended that the school board approve the Microsoft Services renewal as presented at the July 11th, 2022 meeting, and I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any reset on this item?
No, there are no updates on this. These are both just basically renewals.
Okay. Any board comments or questions? Seeing none, any community in the room comments or questions? Seeing none, any online?
There are no hands raised.
Ms. Newman, please call the roll.
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Hoig?
Yes.
Ms. Neufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Ms. Willis?
Yes.
Dr. Jessipanger?
Yes, and this item passes. And then approval of the Blackboard services renewal.
It is recommended that the school board approve the Blackboard services renewal as presented at the July 11, 2022 meeting, and I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any board discussion or questions? Any community comments? Any online community comment?
There are no hands raised.
Okay. Please call the roll.
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Hoig?
Yes.
Ms. Neufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Ms. Willis?
Yes.
Dr. Jessipanger?
Yes, and that item passes. Last item we have is any further public comment on items on the agenda or items not on the agenda tonight. Seeing none in the room, do we have any online?
There are no hands raised.
Okay. It is 8:39. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Newman?
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Hoig?
Yes.
Ms. Neufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Ms. Willis?
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Anger?
Yes, and I hope you all have a beautiful evening. We're adjourned.